It hurts. Help me!
He never saw his uncle's face. That was the part that would stay with him. Not the ambush itself, not the 11 men stepping out of the dark, not the first blade finding his shoulder before he could reach his own. But the voice, behind all of it, giving the order, calm, familiar, the voice of a man who had sat across from him at dinner 3 nights ago and raised a glass and said, "To the kingdom." The same voice now, in the dark, in the snow. Make sure. They had known his route. Of course they had. Only 3 people knew his route. He understood this with the specific, devastating clarity that arrives in moments of violence in the space between the first blade and the second. The understanding that betrayal of this precision could only come from proximity, from trust, from blood. He fought. 6 against 1 in the dark, and he fought the way he had always fought, with everything, without reservation, with the particular ferocity of a man who had never once in his life accepted the terms offered to him by someone else. He took 2 of them down. Then the 3rd blade found his ribs. Then the 4th found his thigh. Then, the ground. Cold. Immediate. The snow against his face shockingly cold, absurdly cold, the specific cold of something that does not care what you are or were supposed to be. He heard them moving around him. Checking. "He's done," someone said. A pause. "The king is dead," his uncle's voice said. From a distance now, already moving away, already becoming the man who would walk into the throne room tomorrow with grief arranged carefully on his face and a lie arranged even more carefully beneath it. "Leave him," the uncle said. "Let the snow take him." Footsteps. Retreating. Silence. Just the cold. Just the dark. Just the sound of his own breathing ragged, too fast, the sound of a body that had not yet decided whether to continue. Get up, he told himself. He couldn't get up. Move. He couldn't move. The snow was he registered this distantly, the way you register things when the body is busy with more urgent matters, very white, very still, very indifferent to the king bleeding into it. His right hand was pressed against the ground. The seal ring, his father's ring, the Dawnveil sigil, the weight of everything he was and everything that had just been taken from him. Cold against his finger. Not yet, he thought. To no one. To the dark. To the snow. To the specific, stubborn part of himself that had never once accepted anyone else's terms. Not yet. His eyes closed. The cold settled in. And the night, the coldest night of the year, took him. He did not know, as the dark came down, that 40 meters away through the trees, a woman was walking home with a basket of herbs and tired feet. And the specific instinct of someone who had spent her life learning to recognize the difference between something already gone and something still just barely worth saving. She almost walked past him. She didn't. That was the beginning of everything. If that opening caught your attention, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you never miss one of these. Now, let's go back in. She had been working for 2 hours before she allowed herself to breathe. Not literally she had been breathing. In the shallow, focused way she breathed when the work demanded everything and there was nothing left over for anything else. But the breath that meant he might survive this, that breath she had been holding since the moment she dragged him through her door and got his leathers off and saw what they had done to him. 4 wounds. She had catalogued them the way her mother taught her, quickly, completely, without flinching. Because flinching wasted time, and time was the only thing standing between this man and the snow he'd almost died in. The first, left shoulder. Deep, precise, the kind of precision that didn't come from a fight, it came from intent. Someone had known exactly where to put a blade to make sure a man couldn't raise his sword arm. She had cleaned it and stitched it with hands that did not shake because she had trained them, over years of practice, to not shake when shaking was not an option. 12 stitches. The second, his ribs. She had pressed along them carefully, 1, 2, 3, and on the 4th and 7th she felt the give that meant cracked, not broken, which was the difference between surviving and not surviving a 4-day journey on horseback. She had bound them tight. Had done it twice because the first binding wasn't tight enough, and tight enough was the only acceptable standard tonight. The third, his left thigh. Long. Lateral. A blade drawn across, rather than thrust in, designed to bleed, rather than to kill outright. Designed to slow a man down, while the other wounds did their work. She had packed it, and stitched it, and had used more thread on this one than all the others combined, because the muscle beneath had been compromised, and muscle was what he would need to stand, and she intended him to stand. 21 stitches. The 4th wound. She had saved this one for last because it was the one that had made her jaw tighten when she found it, just below the right side of his chest. Not deep, not as deep as the shoulder. But the location was everything. An inch to the left and the blade would have found something it couldn't come back from. Whoever made this wound had known that. Had aimed for it deliberately and in the dark, in the snow, in the chaos of a man who refused to stop fighting even when he should have been dead. Missed. By 1 inch. She had cleaned it with hands that were steady and a jaw that was not. 16 stitches. When she was done, she sat back on her heels on the floor beside the bed and looked at what she had done. The bindings, the stitching, the careful architecture of intervention between a man and the thing that had been intended for him. And she let herself breathe. The breath that meant he might survive this. He might actually survive this. The temperature dropped before dawn. She felt at first the specific quality change of air in a cabin when the fire has burned below the threshold and the cold outside begins to remember it is the stronger force. She checked the fire, added wood, watched it catch, looked at him. Grey-white skin. Chest moving, she counted the breaths the way she always counted, the rhythm of it her primary data point right now. Shallow. Too shallow. She pressed the back of her hand to his forehead and then his neck and felt the specific wrongness of skin that was not generating its own warmth. Too cold. She looked at the blankets, all of them, every one she owned, already on him. She looked at the fire already as high as it went. She looked at the window, the dark outside, absolute and pressing. She made the decision the way she made all decisions. Practically, without drama. With the clear understanding that there was one option remaining and the situation did not have room for sentiment. She climbed in beside him, pressed herself against his back, her chest to his shoulder blades, her arms pulling the blankets tight around them both, her body offering the only heat source the cabin had left that she hadn't already deployed. This is medicine, she told herself. This is what the situation requires. She focused on her own warmth as a thing she could give deliberately. Concentrated on it the way she concentrated on difficult stitching, with intention, with precision, with the understanding that the quality of the attention mattered. An hour. Maybe 2. His breathing changed. Slowly. So slowly she almost missed the shift, the shallow, desperate rhythm beginning, incrementally to deepen. The grey in his skin, she could feel it more than see it in the dark beginning to change. She exhaled, stayed where she was. At some point before dawn, she felt it. His hand, moving in the dark, finding hers, wrapping around it. Not grasping, not the grip of fear or confusion, something more instinctive than either. The specific reach of a body that had found warmth and recognized it. She had been saying it all night, quietly, steadily, the way she said everything that mattered without performance, without knowing if anyone was receiving it, because it needed to be said regardless. Stay, just stay, his hand around hers. Like even at the very edge of everything. He had heard her. He woke on the second day. Not gently. His whole body surged, the violent, disoriented waking of a man whose last conscious memory was 6 men and 4 blades, and the specific cold of ground that didn't care what he was. His hand reached for a weapon. His grey eyes snapped open. His injured ribs immediately delivered their opinion of sudden movement with a ferocity that stopped him. Still, completely still. Elena didn't move from her chair. She had positioned herself carefully, close enough, far enough. She knew this moment. The body always fought before it understood. "You're safe," she said. The grey eyes found her. She held them. "You're in my cabin," she said, even, unhurried. "I found you in the snow last night. You have 4 wounds, all stitched and bound, 2 cracked ribs. You've lost significant blood, and your temperature was dangerous before dawn." A pause. "You're going to be fine. But you need to stop moving, or you'll open the stitches, and I'll have to do them again." He stilled. The eyes sharp. Immediately, completely sharp. Not the disorientation she expected. The eyes of a man who assessed everything in the first 3 seconds and gave nothing back. She filed this away. "How many?" he said. His voice rough, damaged at the edges, but underneath it, the specific timbre of a voice that had given orders and been obeyed. She filed this away too. "How many what?" she said. "Stitches." 49, she said. "Total." Something moved in his face. "The shoulder," he said. 12. "The thigh." 21. "The chest." 16. A pause. "You counted," he said. "I stitched," she said. Counting was unavoidable. He looked at her. The specific look of a man recalibrating his understanding of a situation. She looked back. "Where am I?" he said. "My forest. About 4 leagues north of Ashford Settlement." Something moved in his face again, the micro-expression. There and gone. She caught it. Didn't comment. "Your name?" he said. "Elena." He said it back. "Elena. The way you say a word you are deciding to keep. The way you say something you intend to remember." "Yours," she said. A pause. The length of a decision. "Kael," he said. "True." Incomplete. The narrow, difficult space between a lie and the full truth. She nodded. "Can you drink, Kael?" He could drink. She got him water, watched him manage the cup with the controlled deliberateness of a man for whom accepting help was a thing he was doing consciously rather than naturally. She watched his hands while he drank, scarred, strong, the old silver scars of a man who had been in more fights than he should have survived. And on his right hand, a ring. Heavy silver, a wolf's head intricately worked, a sigil she couldn't quite make out in the firelight. She looked at it for a moment, looked away, filed it. By evening he was sitting up, managing it with his jaw set against the ribs and his shoulder held with the specific careful stillness of a man who understood his own damage and was working around it rather than ignoring it. She watched him assess the cabin with the same eyes he had turned on her, complete, systematic, giving nothing back. "You live alone," he said. "Yes." "How long?" 5 years. He looked at the herbs hanging from the ceiling, at her mother's chair, at the particular arrangement of a space that had been built for one person and had been one person for a long time. "Your mother's things," he said. Not a question. She looked at him. "Yes," she said. He nodded once, said nothing else. The fire between them, the dark outside. She went back to her work. He watched her. She was aware of it the entire time. The specific quality of his attention, not intrusive, not demanding, just present. The way a man watches something he has decided is worth watching. She told herself it didn't matter. She told herself this several times. It didn't entirely work. On the 3rd day, she changed his shoulder stitching, unwound the binding, Examined the wound good, clean, the edges holding, began the redressing. He sat completely still. You were counting again, he said. She looked up. What? Your lips move, he said, when you count stitches. She looked at the stitching. Occupational habit, she said. How many this time? Still 12, she said. They held. Good, he said. Yes, she said. It is. She tied off the bandage. He looked at her, hands still on his shoulder, not moving yet. She became aware of this. Stepped back. How does it feel? She said. Better, he said, his voice doing something careful. Good, she said, and went back to the fire. Her hands, she noticed, were not entirely steady. She did not examine this. Not yet. He watched her all evening. She kept her back to him. Both of them very carefully, not mentioning that the cabin had a different quality now than it had before he was in it. Both of them already knowing it would never quite go back. The storm came back on the 4th day. Heavy, definitive, the kind of storm that didn't ask permission, it simply arrived and rearranged what was possible. The path to Ashford, gone. The herb garden, under 2 feet of new snow. The cabin sealed into itself, self-contained, the world outside reduced to sound and white. Elena had been alone in storms before. She had never been alone in a storm with someone. The difference was she noticed things she had forgotten to notice. The way another person's breathing changed the quality of a room's silence. The way the fire seemed more deliberate when there were 2 people needing it. The way her own movements always efficient, always purposeful, always pointed at the next task became slightly more considered when someone was watching them. He was always watching. Not obtrusively, not with the particular aggressive attention of a man who wanted her to know he was watching, just present. In the way of a man who had been trained to observe everything and had not yet turned that training off, even in a small, warm cabin with nowhere to observe except her. She found, against her expectation, that she didn't mind. On the 6th evening, she made soup, real soup, not broth, the kind that required actual attention, and he watched the entire process from the bed with the focused interest of someone for whom this was genuinely new. Your mother taught you to cook as well, he said. My mother taught me everything, she said. What was she like? Not a question, a genuine want to know, the kind that came from actual curiosity rather than conversational obligation. Elena stirred the soup. Practical, she said. She wasn't a warm woman, not in the way people usually mean. She didn't sit with you and tell you she loved you. She showed you how to do things. A pause. How to set a bone. How to read a fever. Which plants healed and which ones harmed and the exact amount of difference between the two. Another pause. I understood later that it was love. The teaching. She was giving me everything she had so I could survive without her. She said the last sentence to the soup. The cabin was quiet for a moment. She knew she would leave, Kael said. She was ill, Elena said. The last 2 years, she knew. I'm sorry. She looked at him. He was looking at her, the grey eyes, the severe face with an expression she had not seen on it before. Not the assessment, something quieter. You said that before, she said, at the beginning. I meant it then too, he said. She looked at him for a moment longer than she intended to. Looked back at the soup. You lost your father, she said. You told me. Yes. How old were you? 22. That's young, she said. It is, he said. Were you close? A pause, longer than his usual pauses. I was what he needed me to be, Kael said carefully. I don't know if that's the same as close. She absorbed this. That's sad, she said simply. He looked at her. Most people don't say that, he said. What do most people say? That it was an honor, that I served well, that, he stopped. Things that are true but not what was said. I'm not most people, she said. No, he said. It happened on the 9th night. She was at the window checking the storm's progress, the particular professional assessment of a woman calculating how long before the path to Ashford would be passable when she heard it. A sound. Low, chest deep, coming from the bed. She turned. Kael was sitting up, his grey eyes fixed on the door. Not on her, on the door. His expression, she had learned his expressions over 9 days, had catalogued them the way she catalogued symptoms, was not one she had seen before, not the controlled neutral, not the assessment. Something older than both. Something that was not entirely human. His eyes. She saw it first in his eyes. The grey shifting, not changing colour entirely but deepening, intensifying. The silver in them catching some quality of light that the cabin's fire did not contain. The pupils different. Just barely. Just enough. And the sound again. Low. Sustained. Emanating from somewhere below conscious decision. She crossed the room. Stood at the window beside the door. Looked out. 2 figures at the tree line. Travellers, she could see them clearly. A man and a woman moving through the storm. Moving past. Not stopping, their path taking them close to the cabin's edge before curving away into the dark. She watched them go, turned back. Kael's eyes slowly, incrementally, returned to grey. The sound stopped. He looked at her. Something in his face, not embarrassment. Something more complex. The expression of a man who has just revealed something he didn't intend to reveal and is deciding what to do about it. They were just travellers, she said, evenly, practically. I know, he said. Your wolf didn't. A pause. No, he said. It didn't. She looked at him. At the eyes that were grey again, ordinary grey, the grey she had been looking at for 9 days, but not, she understood now, entirely ordinary. Not ever entirely ordinary. How long? She said. Always. He said, since I was 17. Does it? She stopped. Started again. Can you control it? Usually, he said. And when you can't? He looked at her. It depends, he said carefully, on what it's responding to. She held his gaze. Filed everything. Went back to the window. The travellers were gone, the storm continuing, the cabin warm and sealed. She did not ask what his wolf had been responding to tonight. She was afraid she already knew. And she was more afraid. Pressing her back against the cold wall beside the window, her hand finding the wooden pendant at her throat without her deciding to reach for it. Of what she had been feeling the moment his eyes changed. Not fear. The opposite of fear. The specific pull of a body recognizing something it has been waiting for without knowing it was waiting. She pressed the pendant harder against her palm. That's not what this is, she told herself. That's not what this is. She told herself this very firmly. It didn't entirely work. On the 9th day, she redressed his shoulder wound. The angle required her to be close. She had explained this, practically. Because she was practical about these things. He had nodded. She had positioned herself behind him, her hands at his shoulder, working with the focused efficiency of a healer who had done this many times. She had not done this particular thing many times. Not with him. Not with someone whose stillness had this quality, not the stillness of a patient tolerating discomfort, but the stillness of a man making a deliberate choice to be still, because the alternative was... She tied the bandage. Done, she said. She didn't step back immediately. He didn't move. The fire, the storm, the small specific silence of 2 people in a small space making a shared decision without discussing it. Elena, he said. Her name. That way. She stepped back. How does it feel? She said. Professionally, practically. Better. He said, his voice doing something careful. Good, she said. She went back to the fire. Her hands, she noticed, were not entirely steady. She did not examine this closely. Not yet. She felt it first on the 12th day. Not dramatically. Not the way the old pack stories described it, the thunderclap, the sudden, overwhelming certainty, the wolf howling, and the mate knowing. She had heard those stories her whole life, had treated enough pack wolves to have heard the bond described in every register from reverent to terrified. None of them had described this. This was quiet. She woke before dawn on the 12th day and knew, before she opened her eyes, exactly where he was in the cabin. Not because she could hear him, the cabin was silent. Not because she could see him, her eyes were closed. She knew the way you know your own hand in the dark, with a certainty that didn't require evidence because the evidence was already inside her. He's awake, she thought. He's sitting up. He's looking at the window. She opened her eyes. He was sitting up, looking at the window. She lay very still. No, she thought. She knew what this was. She had treated pack wolves through the early stages of bonding, had seen the specific symptoms, had been called in twice by families who didn't understand why their daughter or son was suddenly oriented toward a specific person, like a compass toward north. She knew what it looked like from the outside. She had not known, until this moment, what it felt like from the inside. No, she thought again, harder, more deliberately. He is a patient. He is injured. He is a stranger. You don't know where he comes from. You don't know what he is. You don't know. He turned from the window, his grey eyes finding her in the dark immediately, without searching, the way you find something when you already know where it is. You're awake, he said. Yes, she said. Neither of them mentioned that he had found her in the dark without looking. Neither of them mentioned that she had known he was awake before she opened her eyes. They both knew. That was the problem. She went to her mother's old medical texts that afternoon, the ones she kept in the chest at the foot of her bed, worn and annotated in her mother's handwriting. The accumulated knowledge of a healer who had spent 12 years treating wolves. She found the page on mating bonds. Read it. Read it again. Her mother's handwriting in the margins, notes from cases, observations, the specific clinical shorthand of a woman who had seen this many times. Bond onset, involuntary, wolf-initiated, cannot be reversed, once fully formed. Symptoms in early stages, directional awareness, elevated sensitivity to subject's proximity, disruption of normal appetite and sleep, heightened emotional response. She looked at the window, at the cabin, at her hands. Disruption of normal appetite and sleep. She had not been sleeping properly for 3 days. She had not been hungry at mealtimes. She pressed her palms flat against the page. She had been aware of him, every moment, the specific location of him, in the cabin at all times, the quality of his breathing when he slept, the exact moment each morning when he woke. She closed the book, sat with it in her lap. The implications arranged themselves in front of her with the clinical clarity of a woman who had been trained to look at difficult information directly. If the bond was forming, if it had already begun, then her wolf nature, the low-ranking, long-dormant wolf blood her mother had never explained, and she had never examined, had recognized something in him, had chosen. Without her permission, without her knowledge, without the most basic information about who he was. She looked at the pendant in her hand, at the carved wolf, at the sigil she had worn her whole life without knowing what it meant. Who are you? She thought. Not to the pendant. To the man in the next room whose breathing she could hear even through the wall, even now, even always. Who are you? And what has my wolf done? She put the book away, went back to his care, gave him his evening medication with the steady hands of a woman who had decided firmly, practically, with the full force of her considerable self-discipline, that she was not going to act on this, that she was going to be professional, that she was going to be a healer and nothing else until he was well enough to leave, and then he would leave, and the bond, if it was a bond, she was not certain it was a bond, would simply have to... "Elena," he said. She looked up. He was watching her with those grey eyes. The eyes that changed at night. The eyes that found her in the dark without searching. "You're thinking very hard," he said. "I always think hard," she said. "About what tonight?" She looked at him. At the man she didn't know, at the patient she was responsible for, at the stranger whose wolf had growled at travellers 3 nights ago, and whose eyes had found hers in the dark this morning before either of them had decided to look. "Nothing important," she said. She went back to work. Her hands steady, her pendant warm against her throat. And deep inside her, in the place below decision, below discipline, below all the firm, practical things she had been telling herself, something that had been dormant for 24 years, pulled toward him, quietly, certainly, without apology, the way the bond always pulls, like it has already decided, like the decision was never hers to make. 14 days. His wounds were closing. She could see the progress every morning when she changed his bandages, the stitches holding, the skin knitting, the bruising moving through its spectrum toward resolution. He was sitting up easily now, standing, moving around the small cabin with the careful deliberateness of a man managing his recovery with precision. He would be able to leave soon. She had been thinking this for 3 days. She had not been thinking about what it meant, or rather, she had been specifically not thinking about it, which was its own kind of thinking. On the 14th night, the fire burned down. She was asleep finally, deeply, the exhausted sleep of 2 weeks of interrupted nights, and what woke her was the cold. The particular cold of a cabin whose fire has dropped below the functional threshold. She got up, added wood, stoked it back, watched it catch. Turned around. He was awake. He had been awake she couldn't say how long. He was sitting up against the headboard, the blanket around his shoulders. Those grey eyes in the low firelight watching her with the specific quality of attention she had learned over 14 days to recognize as his version of she didn't have the word for it yet. Something between regard and want. Something that had been building in the increments of every shared meal and every real conversation and every bandage changed in silence. She stood at the fire. He sat on the bed. The cabin held the moment the way good spaces hold things without comment. "You should sleep," she said. "I know," he said. Neither of them moved. "Kael," she said. "Elena," he said. Her name. That way. She crossed the room. She didn't decide to, or rather the decision had been made 14 days ago, on the coldest night of the year, when she'd climbed in beside a dying man and he'd found her hand in the dark and held it. And everything since then had been the long, slow acknowledgement of what that meant. She sat on the edge of the bed. He looked at her. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Then tell me," she said. A pause. The length of a man standing at the edge of a truth that will change everything, and choosing the feeling over the truth. Just for one more night. "Tomorrow," he said. She looked at him. "Tomorrow," she said. He reached up. His hand, the scarred hand, the ringed hand, the hand she had held in the dark without knowing what any of it meant, touched her face, the backs of his knuckles against her cheek, barely. The touch of a man who has been counting every moment of restraint and has reached the last one. "Elena," he said. And she leaned into it. He didn't tell her tomorrow. The storm returned, and the day after, a complication in his shoulder wound that needed 3 days of careful treatment. And after that, the specific daily cowardice of a man who had found something he had never expected and could not bear to watch it change. She was warm in the morning. She laughed quietly, not often, but when she did it was genuine and unexpected, and it did something to the severe architecture of his daily life that he had no framework for. She talked to her mother sometimes, not to Elena's mother, but to the absence of her, small things. The yarrow is almost gone. I'll need more in spring. The roof held last night. You'd be pleased. He listened to these, said nothing, filed them away like a man making an inventory of the most important things he had ever been given access to. He told himself he would tell her. He would tell her when they left. On the road, he would explain everything, and she would understand, and it would be fine. He told himself this. He almost believed it. 3 weeks in, the snow had stopped. The path was passable. His body, she had checked him that morning with the focused efficiency of a healer doing a final assessment, was healed enough. Not fully. Not the way she would have chosen, but enough. He was going to leave. She was at the fire when he said it. I'm well enough to travel. She didn't move for a moment. Then she turned. Her face composed. The quietly beautiful face doing what it had learned to do over 5 years alone. Receiving things without showing what they cost until she had time to examine the cost privately. Good, she said. Come with me, he said. She looked at him. I need a healer, he said. The journey is long. My shoulder still needs... Your shoulder will hold, she said. You don't need me. Elena. Her name. She looked at him. At the grey eyes. The severe face. The man who had been in her cabin for 3 weeks and asked her real questions and held her hand in the dark and said, tomorrow, and then never told her the thing he had been going to tell her. Come with me, he said again. Quieter. The pretense gone from it. Just the truth of 2 words, come with me, and everything they carried. She looked at the cabin. At her mother's chair by the window. Her mother's herbs hanging from the ceiling. Her mother's cloak on the hook by the door. The absence arranged carefully around her like furniture she had learned to live around. She looked at him. All right, she said. The journey took 4 days. She noticed things. She always noticed things. It was the habit of a healer and a woman who had lived alone long enough that observation had become her primary relationship with the world. But the things she noticed on this road required more filing than usual. The way other travellers moved aside for Kael. Not from basic courtesy, from something more specific. The quick step to the left, the eyes that found him and dropped immediately. The particular body language of people who had been trained by experience, by instinct, by something cultural and deep to make space for this particular kind of man. She filed it. The way he sat on his horse. She had horses in her life, the settlement at Ashford kept them. She had borrowed them for difficult medical calls. She knew how people sat on horses. Kael sat on his horse the way kings sat on thrones. The ease of someone for whom this specific elevated position was simply correct, natural, the default. She filed it. The decisions he made about route, about where to stop, about which settlement to skirt around and which to pass through, made without consultation, without uncertainty, with the clean efficiency of a man for whom deciding was as automatic as breathing. She filed everything and said nothing, because she trusted him. Because she loved him, she allowed herself this word, privately, on the second night when he was asleep and she was awake with the stars and the cold and the truth of her own feelings spread out before her clearly. She loved him. She had loved him since she tried to find the exact moment, and couldn't. It didn't have an exact moment. It had accumulated, the way the cold accumulated in winter, until it was simply the condition of things. She loved him, and she was afraid of what she was going to find at the end of this road. On the 3rd night, he saw her take out the pendant. She held it in the firelight, her mother's wolf, the carved sigil she had worn every day for 5 years without understanding what it meant. She turned it slowly, the firelight finding the details of the carving. She felt him go still, looked up. He was looking at the pendant with an expression she had not seen before. Your mother made that, he said. Yes, she said. She never told me what the sigil meant. He looked at it for a long moment. his face doing something careful, something managed. "It's beautiful," he said. He said nothing else. She looked at him. Read the careful management. Filed it. Closed her hand around the pendant. "Tomorrow," she said. He looked at her sharply. She looked back steadily. "Whatever it is you've been going to tell me," she said. "Tomorrow." A pause. "Tomorrow," he said. She lay down, closed her eyes. Tomorrow, she thought. Finally. She knew something was wrong before the walls appeared. The road had been changing for an hour, widening, the trees giving way to managed land, the ground more travelled, the air carrying the particular quality of a place where many people lived, and their living left a mark on everything around it. She had been to Ashford. She had been to 2 other settlements. She knew what settlements felt like. This was not a settlement. The walls appeared around a bend in the road. Stone, massive, old in the way of things built to outlast everyone who built them. Towers at intervals. Banners, she saw them from a distance. Dark fabric, a device she couldn't yet make out. She pulled her horse to a stop. Kael. He pulled up beside her. "Elena." "What is this?" Not a question. The tone of a woman who had been filing things away for 3 weeks and 4 days and had run out of room and patience simultaneously. "Come inside," he said. "I'll explain." "Tell me now." She looked at him. He looked at her. The grey eyes carrying, she could see it now, completely. Without the warmth of the cabin softening her perception, the specific weight of a man who has been carrying a truth for a long time and has arrived at the place where it can no longer be carried. "Inside," he said quietly. "Please." The please. She had never heard him say please before. "Inside," she said. They rode forward. The gates opened before they reached them. Someone had seen them coming. Someone had recognized. She filed this. The courtyard was vast and cobbled and busy with the ordinary traffic of a large establishment, people, moving, carrying, purposeful. And then they rode through the gate and the ordinary traffic. Stopped. Person by person. Task by task. Until the entire courtyard was still. Watching. The silence of people seeing something they had been told they would never see again. Kael dismounted. And from the main steps, an old man, silver-haired, moving with the urgent purposefulness of someone whose body was old and whose need was immediate. He came down the steps, crossed the courtyard, stopped in front of Kael, looked up at him. His face, Elena watched it from horseback, watched the specific journey of it moving through shock and disbelief, and something so enormous she couldn't name it, except to recognize it as the feeling of a person who has been living in grief and has just been handed back. The thing they were grieving. He went to one knee. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice breaking on the second word. Elena went completely still. "Your Majesty." She looked at Kael. He was already looking at her. Those grey eyes, the severe, beautiful face, carrying now, finally, without the management, without the careful construction, everything he had been carrying since the second day in her cabin, when he had decided to say Kael and nothing more. She didn't speak. She looked at the gates above them. The banners. The sigil on the banners, dark fabric, a wolf's head, worked in silver thread. She had seen this sigil in the firelight on the 3rd night of their journey. She had seen it every day for 5 years, small, carved in wood, worn against her heart on a cord her mother had made. She looked at her hand. At the pendant in her palm, she had taken it out on the road, some instinct pulling it free. The same wolf. The same sigil. She looked at the ring on his right hand. The same. She looked at the courtyard, at the banners, at the old man on his knee, at the people standing in total silence, watching their dead king stand in their courtyard alive. She looked at Kael. He held her gaze. did not flinch from it, did not explain, did not reach for her. Gave her the moment completely, the whole weight of it, undiluted, the truth arriving without softening or management, or the word tomorrow. She dismounted, walked past him, into the palace. Without looking back, the uncle was brought forward within the hour. Elena watched from a high window. She had found it by instinct, moving through corridors she didn't know, upstairs she hadn't been shown, until she found glass and height and the ability to see everything below without being part of it. She needed to see it. She needed to understand the full shape of what she had been inside without knowing. Below, the courtyard filled with people. The kingdom that had been mourning, that had been living under a lie, under the specific cruelty of a man who had looked at his nephew's life and decided it was a fair trade for a throne. She could see the uncle from here, older than Kael, heavier, the kind of face that had been performing authority for long enough that the performance had become the only thing left underneath. He was brought to his knees. Kael stood before him. She had seen Kael in her cabin. She had seen him on the road. She had seen him in the firelight, in the dark, asking real questions and holding her hand and saying tomorrow. She had not seen him like this. Still, absolute. The severe, beautiful face, without a single thing softening it, not anger, not satisfaction, nothing that would have made it easier to watch. Just justice, clean and certain as a diagnosis. The same precision he had brought to everything, the same economy. One word. She couldn't hear it. She could read his face. The uncle was led away. By nightfall, it was done. She watched the kingdom exhale below her. Watched the lights come on window by window, fire by fire, the particular illumination of a people who had been afraid for a long time and had just been given permission to stop. She pressed her palm flat against the cold glass. Her pendant in her other hand. Her mother's wolf. Her mother who had known. Who had given her daughter the sigil without explaining it, the small carved secret of a woman who had her own history with this bloodline, her own reasons Elena might never know now. Or, she looked at the pendant, thought about her mother's knowledge, the specific, detailed knowledge of alpha wounds, the way she had never explained where it came from. The way she had, in her last weeks, pressed the pendant into Elena's hand and said, "Keep this. It will matter someday. It will matter someday." She closed her fist around it, looked at the celebrating kingdom, felt simultaneously, occupying the same space without resolution, furious, devastated, proud, in love, all of it, at the man below who had said tomorrow 17 times, and was going to have to answer for every single one. He came at midnight. She heard the knock quiet, not the knock of a king, the knock of a man who was not certain he was welcome and was asking rather than assuming. She had noticed this about him in the cabin too. The way his authority and his consideration existed simultaneously without contradiction. The way he could fill a room and still find room in it for her. She had noticed everything about him. That was the problem. "Come in," she said. He opened the door. No crown. She noted this immediately, the dark coat, the collar open, the severe face without the architecture of kingship around it. Just him, the version of him she knew, the version she had been given without being told she was being given it. She was standing at the window. She stayed there. "I wondered how long you would wait," she said. "I wanted to give you time," he said. "You've given me enough things without asking," she said. He was quiet. She turned, looked at him. He looked back, not flinching, not managing, not finding the narrow, difficult space between truth and something easier. Just standing in the full consequence of his choices with the same quality of stillness he brought to everything. "Sit down," she said. He sat. She stayed standing. "Tell me," she said. "All of it. From the beginning. Not the king version, the true version, he told her. She listened the way she listened to everything completely, without interrupting, filing each piece in its correct place. The coup, his uncle and 6 men on a road that only people close to him knew he would take. The ambush, designed to kill, not wound, designed to be final. The snow, waking with her voice in the dark and no sense of where he was or how much he had lost, and the specific, desperate arithmetic of a body deciding whether to continue. The decision, made in the first hour of consciousness, in the specific clarity that came with survival, to say nothing, to be Kael and only Kael. To have, for the first time in 6 years, a room that didn't know what he was. I told myself I would tell you, he said, every day. But you didn't, she said. Every day I looked at you, he said, and I wasn't ready for you to look at me differently. She absorbed this. And the bond, she said. The word landing in the room like something physical. He went still. Yes, he said. You bonded with me. Yes. While I thought you were a man named Kael who needed a healer. Yes. Each yes landing flat and honest. No defense in them. No attempt to soften or reframe. Just the acknowledgement complete, uncomfortable, deserved. She looked at him. My mother's pendant, she said. Yes. She knew this sigil. The Dawnvale healers, the ones who served my father's line, they were given the sigil when they took the oath. Your mother served my father for 12 years. A pause. She left when he died. I didn't know she had a daughter. I didn't know she had given the sigil to anyone. Another pause. When I saw it on the road, I understood. Your mother trained you. Everything she knew, everything that saved me, she gave to you. Elena looked at the pendant in her palm. Her mother's secret. Her mother's 12 years. Her mother pressing the pendant into her hand and saying, It will matter someday. She closed her fist around it. She knew, Elena said quietly, didn't she, that I might find someone from the line someday, that the knowledge would be needed. I think, Kael said carefully, your mother was a woman who prepared for everything. She was, Elena said. The window, the kingdom below quieter now, the celebration settling into the deep, contented quiet of people who have gone to bed safe for the first time in months. The fire in the room. The pendant in her hand. Was any of it real? She said. The question. Into the room. Into the silence between them. The only question. He looked at her, the grey eyes, the severe face. The king without his crown, in a chair, in a palace room that was nothing like a forest cabin, except that he was in it, and she was in it, and the truth was finally in it too. All of it, he said. Kael. All of it, Elena, his voice quiet. Not the voice that gave orders, the other voice, the one she had heard in the dark, on the coldest night of the year, and every night after. Every question, every answer I listened to, the way you talked to your mother's absence when you thought I was asleep. The way you laughed that one time the 4th day when the broth burned and you said something I couldn't hear and then laughed at yourself. She remembered this. The morning you woke before me and I watched you from the bed, he said, and thought, this is what I've been missing. Not warmth, not company, this specific thing, this woman in this cabin being completely herself. She was very still. The bond, he said, was not a decision. It was a recognition. My wolf recognized you and acted, and I. He stopped. I should have told you immediately. I know that. I chose not to because I was selfish and I was afraid, and I am not making excuses for either of those things. She looked at him. I'm angry, she said. I know, he said. I have the right to be. You have every right, he said. I'm not asking you not to be. What are you asking? He stood, crossed the room, stopped in front of her. Close. The cabin close. The specific distance of 14 days of proximity and one night of no distance at all, and the long road after, and everything that lived in the space between them that had never been named until now. He looked at her. She looked up at him. "I'm asking you to stay," he said, "not as my healer, not under pretense of any kind. A pause. As my queen, as my mate. Because you are already both the bond made you both before I had the courage to tell you, and because—" He stopped. Something in his face. The severe architecture of it not breaking, not softening, but opening. The specific opening of a man who has decided to give the last thing. The thing he has been keeping behind the management and the careful words and the 17 tomorrows. "Because I would rather have your anger," he said, "than anyone else's peace. Because you talked to me in the dark when you didn't know if I could hear you, and I could hear you, and I have been hearing you ever since. Because you dragged me 40 meters through the snow on the coldest night of the year because my chest was moving, and that was enough for you." His voice on the last words. Quiet. Completely quiet. The voice of a man giving something he has not given before. "It was enough for me too," he said. "You. Just you. Before I knew anything else about you. Before the fire and the broth and the fourth day when you laughed. Before all of it." "From the snow," she said. "From the snow," he said. She looked at him. At the grey eyes that had found her on the second day and held on. At the severe face that had asked her real questions and listened to the answers. At the man who had been a king in her cabin without her knowing. And had been more himself there than anywhere else. She thought about her mother. About 12 years of service and a pendant and the specific wisdom of a woman who prepared for everything and gave her daughter the tools for a situation she couldn't have predicted, but somehow, had known was coming. She thought about the cabin. Empty now. Her mother's things still arranged around the absence. She looked at Kael. "You will never lie to me again," she said. "Not by omission. Not by tomorrow. Not by any version of the truth that is less than all of it." "Never," he said. "About anything. About anything." "I will hold you to that," she said. "I'm counting on it," he said. She looked at him for one more moment. Long enough to be sure. She was sure. She reached up, placed the pendant in his hand. Her mother's wolf, his family's sigil, the small carved bridge between everything that was and everything that was going to be. "Keep it," she said, "until I decide you've earned it back." He looked at the pendant in his palm, closed his fingers around it. "I'll spend however long it takes," he said. "Good," she said, and she closed the distance between them. Not because she had forgiven everything, not because the anger was gone, not because it was simple, but because it was real. All of it. He had said so. She believed him. And she had never, not once, not in 24 years, been wrong about what she believed. She found him in the snow. She didn't know who he was. She saved him anyway. He came back for her. He told her everything. Finally. Some things the forest teaches you arrive broken. That doesn't mean they aren't worth the dragging.